This is my first public engagement with the press since returning from space, and it surely is different. For one, I don't have to brace myself or stabilize myself without floating away into microgravity before addressing you. First and foremost, I wish to express my heartfelt gratitude to the Government of India, ISRO, the Indian Air Force, NASA and its international partners, Axiom Space, and SpaceX. Each of these institutions played a pivotal role in transforming this mission from an idea into a reality. Their unwavering support, coordination, and belief in the mission made it possible for me to be here before you today, not just as a spacefarer, but as a messenger of what's now possible for our nation. In a realm like space exploration built on decades of global collaboration, the moment in this mission that stood out for me was speaking to the Honorable Prime Minister of Bharat while the Indian flag floated behind me. That moment symbolized India's re-entry into the conversation, not as a spectator, but as an equal participant. After 41 years, a Bharatiya returned to space, but this time it wasn't a solitary leap. It was the beginning of what I like to call India's second orbit. And this time we are ready, not just to fly, but to lead. The mission itself exceeded every one of my expectations, but nothing, literally nothing could have prepared me for what came after. The love, the messages, the support from every corner of Bharat. While conducting science in space, I remember one moment very vividly, peering through the microscope and seeing these stem cells behaving positively in microgravity, showing encouraging patterns. It was science in motion, 400 kilometers above the planet. I couldn't help but feel a surge of pride, not just in the data, but in the dedication of the ISRO scientists and all the partner institutions across India that made those experiments fly. But science wasn't the only frontier. We also made space come alive for students across the country through STEM demonstrations. Doing science in space is fun as well as challenging. I remember my bubble in a bubble experiment became talk of the town as several crew members tried to help accomplish the feat. It would be a joy for me to share all that with you in the coming days. In the outreach sessions we held with students, the most common question I received was, how do I become an astronaut? And that to me is the true success of this mission. Technical milestones are measurable and crucial. But this, the spark of belief in young minds, this is where the future truly begins. If children across Bharat are already asking these questions, we are halfway there. The rest is just enabling them. As I sit here today, I feel a mixture of emotions, relief, pride, humility. But most of all, I feel connected. Connected to this team who made this mission possible. Connected to every citizen who watched that launch. To every child who imagined themselves in a flight suit. To every scientist who stayed up nights preparing an experiment. And to every one of you who has claimed this mission not as mine, but as ours. Thank you for believing in this mission. Thank you for making it your own. Jai Hind, Jai Bharat. And I would now like to hand over to Swav for his comments.
Thank you, Shukla. It is fantastic to be back, and I have been reflecting
from RMFFN. These questions are for Shukla, Swav, and TV. First, what new things have you learned about space, and what have you learned about each other? Start with you, Shukla.
Let me start this answer. Thank you for your question. What new have I learned about space? I think everything. This was my first trip to the space. So everything that I've learned, and during the training, during the journey, while preparing for the mission and while doing the actual travel itself. But one thing that was very special or specific for me was when you train on ground, you prepare for the mission and you know the situation and your environment and condition that you're likely to experience. But the actual experience when you are up there is totally different. And I think the experience of going up, being in orbit, performing experiments, and understanding how your body reacts to the microgravity and the environment of space added on to the completeness of the entire training that we had for the past 1 year. So yes, the entire experience of going to the space, launching and being in orbit and coming back, I think that was all new for me, and I'm very excited to have got to experience that. Thank you.
The first question is for Shukla. How has your adjustment been back to gravity after the mission?
Well, thank you, Anjali. Thank you for your question. The first time when we leave the environment of gravity was the time I realized that how our bodies evolve over a period of time, and for almost 40 years we have been in the environment of gravity, and then suddenly you are exposed to an environment where there is microgravity, and the bodies take time to get used to this new environment. And like Tibor was mentioning, that in a few days your bodies get used to this and you start feeling natural. But the same process happens when you come back to the gravity, and that is also quite interesting. I remember this episode when I came back and I was just sitting and I asked for a phone to take a picture from one of the colleagues. And the minute I held the phone, I felt, wow, this is heavy. The same phone that we hold in our hand all day long, it felt really heavy to me. And the process happens in reverse. It takes some time. It is difficult to find your balance. It is difficult to find your footing and do the things that you were doing all your life without even giving it a second thought. Thankfully, there is a great program. When the astronauts come back to Earth, there is a properly curated rehabilitation and recuperation program, and step by step you gain your strength and you gain your balance, and there are exercises and protocols defined which we follow, and I think within 3 or 4 days again you are almost back to normal, and thereafter you continue these exercises. So my rehabilitation has been going great, and today as I sit before you I feel perfectly normal. It feels as if I'm ready for another space mission again. So take a lot of time to share for the experiment, but what I can tell you is that I was extremely excited to do the experiments on the station. Swab mentioned in his opening comments that the experiments that we do on ground, when you enable them on station, it requires a lot to think, because everything is floating and they have to be enabled in a way that they are performed successfully. And I was very excited to see that entire enabling of those experiments. Also, there were certain experiments in which I could see the results, while we were there on the station, and that was very exciting and very encouraging for me. I can say that all of them have been brought back with us, and they have been shipped to the researchers back home, and in due course of time we will start coming up with the findings and the results, and I would love to discuss all that when I'm back home. Thank you.
And finally, what is your biggest takeaway?
These are big questions to be answered in one sentence. I think I'm extremely fortunate and at the same time excited to have been a part of a human space mission end to end and experience the entire process. And I think my biggest takeaway is to realize of how much it takes to make such a mission happen. The kind of effort, the kind of manpower, the kind of collaboration it takes to make this entire mission come together and execute it successfully. I'm just amazed to see this entire machinery work in motion. And that for me is the biggest learning. People from all over the world are working together, sitting in different time zones, different countries, and different cultures, but they all come together to make a single mission happen. And for 18 days we were docked, and 2 days free flight, 20 days together. For these 20 days, I understand of how much effort it requires to make this happen. So I think that would be my biggest takeaway from this mission.
Shucks. And Peggy, how was
शुक्ला जी, आपको प्रधानमंत्री ने कुछ होमवर्क किया था, आपने वो होमवर्क पूरा किया कि नहीं? और अगर होमवर्क किया तो क्या आप तैयार हैं गगनयान प्रोग्राम में अपना योगदान देने के लिए? और आपके ऊपर भारत ने करीबन 70 मिलियन खर्च किए, फायदा हुआ कि नहीं हमको?
नमस्कार बागला जी, थैंक यू सो मच आपके सवाल के लिए। मुझे बहुत अच्छे से याद है प्रधानमंत्री जी ने जो मुझे होमवर्क दिया था, और मैंने काफ़ी अच्छे से उसे पूरा किया है, और वापस आके मैं बहुत उत्साहित हूँ कि मैं ये आप सबके साथ शेयर कर सकूँ। सबसे बड़ी बात जो ये है वो है कि एक ह्यूमन स्पेस मिशन का हिस्सा बनने से आप पूरा मिशन लॉन्च से लेकर रिकवरी तक आप उसका हिस्सा बनते हैं, और आप बहुत कुछ सीखते हैं। और ये जगह ऐसी है जहाँ पे शायद हिस्ट्री के सबसे बड़े ह्यूमन स्पेस मिशन एग्जीक्यूट किए गए हैं। तो मुझे 1 साल में जो सीखने को मिला है, शायद मैं कहूँगा कि वो 1 साल से कहीं ज़्यादा की नॉलेज है जो मैंने यहाँ पे गेन की है, और मैं बहुत कॉन्फिडेंट हूँ कि ये सब हमारे लिए काफ़ी यूज़फुल रहेगा, और वापस आके हम इसको ज़रूर अच्छे से अपने प्रोग्राम में, अपने गगनयान मिशन में हम इसका इस्तेमाल कर पाएंगे। पर उससे भी ज़्यादा जो एक्साइटेड करने वाली बात है वो ये है, मिशन के वापस आने के बाद जो मैंने एक्साइटमेंट देखा अपने देश में, अपनी कंट्री में, स्पेशली बच्चों में, वो एक एक्साइटमेंट वो बन गया है। वो एक्साइटेड हैं ऑलरेडी, वो बहुत क्यूरियस हैं, और वो जानना चाहते हैं मेरे मिशन के बारे में, मेरे बारे में, और एस्ट्रोनॉट कैसे बने। तो मुझे लगता है ये बहुत बड़ी उपलब्धि अपने आप में ही है इस मिशन की, और इन दोनों को मिला के मुझे लगता है कि ये मिशन काफ़ी सक्सेसफुल रहा है और काफ़ी हमारे मिशन के लिए काफ़ी फ़ायदेमंद रहेगा। धन्यवाद।
नमस्कार शुभांशु जी। मैं दीपक शर्मा, जर्मन स्पेस मैगजीन रॉमफर्ट कॉन्क्रीट से। मेरा प्रश्न आपके लिए ये है कि आपने अंतरिक्ष में लगभग 20 दिन बिताए, जहाँ से आपने पृथ्वी को एक बिल्कुल नए दृष्टिकोण से देखा। इस अनुभव ने आपके विचारों में क्या बदलाव लाया, पृथ्वी और मानवता के प्रति आपकी सोच में, और साथ ही आपके अपने व्यक्तिगत चिंतन व मानसिकता में किस प्रकार का परिवर्तन आया?
धन्यवाद दीपक आपके प्रश्न के लिए। तो मुझे लगता है कि ये स्पेस मिशन में एक दृष्टिकोण की जो आप बात कर रहे हैं वो बहुत यूनिक है। एक इमेजिनेशन थी, एक एक्सपेक्टेशन थी मेरी कि जब ये एक स्पेस मिशन होगा तो मुझे पृथ्वी ऐसे दिखेगी या कि किसी प्रकार में दिखेगी। बट जो एक्चुअल जो साइट थी, जो एक्चुअल व्यू पॉइंट था वो काफ़ी अलग था। और सबसे बड़ी चीज़ जो एक वैसे तो बहुत बड़ा सवाल आपने पूछा है, बट अगर एक चीज़ मैं इसमें मेंशन कर सकता हूँ तो वो ये रहेगी कि बाहर से पृथ्वी को देख के ये लगता है कि ये पूरी पृथ्वी हमारा घर है, हम सब का घर है और हम इसी प्लैनेट के सिटीजन्स हैं। ह्यूमैनिटी यहीं पे पली बड़ी है हमेशा से और यहीं पे रह रही है। एक वननेस की फीलिंग आती है। हमारे कल्चर में वसुधैव कुटुंबकम का जो मोटो है वो बहुत सरलता से आप समझ पाते हैं जब आप बाहर से पृथ्वी को देखते हैं। जैसे मैंने कहा बहुत सारे एस्पेक्ट्स हैं जो मैं बता सकता हूँ, लेकिन सबसे बड़ी बात जो मुझे दिखी वो एक वननेस की, एक वसुधैव कुटुंबकम का जो एक मोटो है वो समझ में आता है जब आप बाहर से पृथ्वी को देखते हैं। कोई भी, मैंने पहले भी कहा है, कोई भी बॉर्डर, कोई भी सीमा रेखा नहीं दिखाई देती। ऐसा दिखता है कि ये पूरी पृथ्वी हमारा घर है।